But when I was talking about manga, I don't want people to think that like they don't take advantage of like women and stuff, and you know, Japanese comics. I mean, they definitely do like over sexualize them, but at least they have substance and they can kick ass while doing it, and that's like the main point.
Well, and there's just so many more female creators in the manga world.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I mean, they bank, you know, doing that.
Well, like another industry, like the porn industry, like that is starting to become more for women because there's a lot of women that are taking control of it. I mean, a lot of like women own all the companies, but here and like in comics, it's all men. And so for any change to happen, like more women need to get into it and start, you know, writing comics and maybe like coming up with their own companies or doing something.
And it's a hard thing in the industry because it's just a giant boys club.
It is.
Well, that's the thing is you got the two major publishers, very geared towards the set male audience, and this kind of blocks out women. And until you can get more female creators in there, and the only way you're going to get female creators in there is to get them interested in the comics in the first place, have them grow up reading them, cycle it in, and until you can get it's a vicious cycle. It's blocking them out. It's this objectification, this hypersexualization, the violence. It's really kind of unnerving.
Yeah.
It is.
Well, we were talking about this too, about like, you know, Marvel and DC, like their whole audience is just nostalgia. They want to play up the nostalgia thing, and they don't really concern themselves with getting new readers as much.
You know, one thing I actually thought of too, that even with female characters who even have their own title, I kind of feel like in reading these that oftentimes I still look to the man for help. Like I feel that even certain points where even the women in their own comics need to be rescued by a male. Like they seem they can never go the full distance. You know, like alone anyway.
Yeah,
you know,
like they need some sort of
yeah,
authority figure.
Because you know, Marvel, they just wrapped up their Black Widow storyline, and she had help from like Wolverine, like, you know, like Captain America. It's like can't she just do this on her own? Like, you know, why does she need help from the men? You know, it's like I don't know. It just seems like it's like on a scale. Like here's where the women are in their power level, and then here's the men, and like they just can't function without.
Like they lack authority and power and responsibility.
Yeah.
It's like it's just pushing them into that little corner, and it's okay. And it's like, don't let them get too uppity. You know?
Right, and then you know, to reverse that with say comics like Spider-Man, where he's the leading character. There's like Mary Jane for the most part, always waiting for him. You know,
they play with that sometimes until they retcon it out of
true,
existence.
but how long did it take for that to happen? Though is the thing. And then my big fear too is like how would that affect you know young guys reading the comic? Like my big thing is is my perception of women possibly, I don't want to say tainted, but maybe you know I might not have a clear idea because I've grown up kind of seeing this one package deal.
You know, she'll be there through thick and thin, whatever. It doesn't matter if you come back with cuts and bruises and your wallet missing. You're like, what happened to you? Don't ask questions. Yeah.
The cool thing about comics, it's like it's not like TV, because like in movies, you know, because what you see, if you like see something like happening, you're more vulnerable to like believing it, as opposed to comics where it's like you're getting like a printed story, and in between panels, you know, it's all in your imagination. So it's really easy to basically take comics as just I can't find my words right now. Escapism. It's really easy to just
it's
call
less
that
it's a more passive medium. It's
Yeah.
less, you get less of the bombardment you do with television. So it's you're not quite as susceptible to it.
Yeah, and I mean you have 24 pages an issue, and you know, and then that's it. So it's like 15 minutes.
Right.
You know, and it's not constant stream of just crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think it's really easy.
I think the thing is with this
distance
too
yourself.
is comics, it's drawn. It's quite obviously, I don't care how photorealistic the artist is, you can tell these aren't people. With television, yeah, it's pretty
They're
real.
people.
But the thing is too, is that doesn't excuse some of the rather horrific acts of violence you see perpetrated against women in this, and especially how sexualized it is. With the over-sexualization in comics, you really have to watch out for that, because the risk that these acts of violence will be seen, and you associate that sexuality with it, and that's just not a good thing to be associating with women.
Yeah.
And then it kind of
very
brings up a term that's kind of known in the comic community, refrigerator girlfriends. And basically, we're by that definition, I guess the girlfriend is just the plot device.
Yeah,
You know, there's some motivation for the hero.
Yeah, you show up, your girlfriend's been brutally murdered and stuffed in the refrigerator. Well, you don't freak out and cry. You go and beat someone up, because that's obviously how we solve our problems. But no, it's very much. It seems very much so that the violence perpetrated against women in comics is very much so just a motivation for a male character. Just gives them something to do. She shows up, sex doll, whatever, and then bam, she's dead, and you're on to the next one.
Right.
That's kind of it gives no motivation to make them into characters.
And it gives an excuse for the hero to wallow in self-pity for a couple of issues.
Before he gets over it.
You always just do that.
Yeah.
Until some other like chick comes with like
Yeah.
red hair, and you're like, oh yeah. Like,
And
it's
she's
ridiculous.
different because she has red hair and slightly smaller boobs.
Yeah.
That's a different character altogether.
It's stupid. It's just like, what's the point? You know, it's like, can't like do they have to be killed? First of all, like, why can't they just like slap them? You know, or like be disrespected. You know, like, come on. Like instead of just like being like, oh, I'm just gonna kill her. It's like, well, what about like, don't you have pets? Like, why didn't you kill the dog instead? You know what I mean?
Yeah, you just yeah.
Like even Peter Parker's grandmother isn't safe.
Oh yeah, Aunt May. How many times has she died? A lot.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Eventually, that one needs to stay dead.
Seriously,
Yeah,
when are they gonna kill that
please.
bitch off? She's
Yeah.
old.
I like Aunt May, but
Yeah, but
No,
then,
everybody likes
there's-
Aunt May, but she's got to go.
yeah,
There- you know, and that.
and they had the perfect opportunity to do that, and Joe Quesada messed it
That's
up.
the thing. The only thing that bugs me, like, just the most about the whole superhero genre is that idea of immortality. You know, it's just I don't like it. Death is like. Is real, and death happens to everybody, and the fact that like everybody just lives forever. And Aunt May, I'm sure she's not happy being like 97 for like 20 years.
Yeah.
I would hate that. I would hate to be
Or like,
old
why
and
did they
old
like
bitty.
put her back in time or something? Do something, or like put her into like a robot. Like that would be cool.
That would be pretty cool. I'd
You
start
know,
reading
like,
Aunt
that's-
May's
I
brain,
would've done that.
robot
I'd
body.
be really happy with that actually.
Yeah.
That would be sweet.
That'd be
And then it'd be
really
like a whole episode of her like finding her own as a robot.
Well, I think you see that
Like you would like I would read that. I would read
would
that.
totally read
that issue of Amazing
issue.
Spider-Man.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Do it.
Let's not-
Idea here.
Well, let's get-
Copyright Maggie Curtis.
Well, see, and that actually kind of brings up another point about women in comics is that they're only there to serve the main character. Like, you know, against either getting stuffed in a refrigerator or you're there to dispense with the advice or to be that motherly figure, only to fall into danger yet again.
yeah, just place your head on my bosom, I will comfort you, and oh my god, I've been kidnapped.
Come save me.
Come get me off the bridge. This happens
That's
all
why I
the
like
time.
manga because they have those role reversals all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the guy can be just as useless. You know,
like,
and that's
oh,
why I
We
love
usually
it.
are just as
They,
useless.
yeah, they're
I
just
love
as
that.
useless,
Maybe
like
more.
or like more
More
useless.
useless.
You're just like, why are you even here? But like those are the best part. And they always have some women come in like kicking ass, like a guy gets like but they do that in manga too, like you know taking the women, but still, but they definitely do role reversal. It'd be nice if they could do that in American comics, but they like never do. But one of these days, maybe I'll just write one.
Yeah,
It'd be
do it,
ridiculous.
do it.
People, dogs getting stabbed. Like no.
We recently had a local artist writer on the show, Dirk TD. He does an online manga called Paradigm Shift. And in the interview, I actually asked him about his thoughts about women in comics, but also how he, as a guy, can feel comfortable writing about women in comics. So here's a look at that clip. One thing I want to ask, if I always want to ask this of writers who are writing female characters, as you, as clearly a guy, is it hard for you to draw or write a female character? Like,
Not really.
Yeah.
I guess
Because
the
my-
way I
it's-
don't mean to interrupt.
no,
you.
no, it's okay. I mean, because my biggest fear would be like, you know, like I clearly don't know the the mindset of a woman, so I'm afraid I'd be sexist or like getting my ideas from all the wrong places. So, I mean, how do you make your character who's female different than other female characters in
Well,
comics?
I guess the first aspect is that I really try to tap into her humanness instead of like focusing on she's a woman. I think
Right.
of her as a person first, and then think of any aspects of her being female are sort of secondary characteristics as opposed to being the primary motivator.
Right.
So I guess when I approach all my characters, it's more of I'm trying to approach them from a more universal sentiment. So, you know, their gender ends up being an interesting part of them, and it does play a role. But ultimately, I'm more about what is it that makes us human? Because really, the central focus of the story is what happens if we cease to become human, if we cease being human. That's sort of the main theme of the story.
Oh, cool.
So I'm really more focusing on, who we are as people.
So yeah, well, I want to thank my guests today, Angela Outlaw, William White, and Maggie Curtis. I get a funny feeling we're definitely going to be coming back to this particular topic, and along those lines, we're going to check out violence in comics, sex in comics. It's going to be continuing on, and of course, leading up to race in comics as well. So a lot of cool stuff to look forward to. And before we wrap up, I just want to thank all 215 of you who went on YouTube and checked out our show. And thank you for all the comments. We really appreciate it. And I think with each episode, we're going to get stronger and better. On that note, to be continued.